In this WrestleTalk news, a potential update on CM Punk's AEW return, a bit of MJF controversy following Dynamite, and news on a major title match at Revolution. So subscribe and enable notifications to Always On for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
Wrestling's still real to some people, damn it, and this first story pretty much confirms that. Because on Wednesday's Dynamite, MJF told a story about being involved in a car crash during high school after he got distracted by some, services his girlfriend was, furnishing him with her mouth. He said that post-crash, to avoid the consequences and keep his driver's license, he pulled his girlfriend's unconscious body into the driver's seat and presumably zipped his trousers back up. Now, some viewers took this bit of wrestling braggadocio to mean that MJF was actually admitting to a felony live on air, and they called the police. Because the 434 Facebook page claimed that police received over 300 calls last night and said they would be investigating claims but believe it was a fictional story for a television show, which it likely was. Wrestling Observer's Brian Alvarez followed up saying that there was some truth to that claims and that 100% they got a bunch of phone calls. While ESPN's Mark Raimondi also heard from several people who have said that there is truth to the original story. I think the key thing to take away from this is that it's a wrestling promo, guys. Don't lose your head, everyone. That's for MJF to do when he crashes. The far bigger car crash to talk about in AEW, though, is CM Punk, who tanked his big return to wrestling by bad-mouthing the company he works for during the post-All Out press conference and then being involved in a locker room brawl. Do you remember that? Do you remember the brawl? We've not stopped talking about it since. Punk hasn't been seen since, but that could potentially change soon, as on the latest Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer said that Punk will be available if AEW wants to use him in a couple of months. Now, Punk underwent surgery immediately following All Out to repair a torn left tricep, which would usually have someone out of action for 8 months. And the thing is, it's unclear whether Punk will return, though, as many of the rumours recently suggested that he would be interested in buying out the remainder of his contract, which led to further speculations about him actually returning to WWE. It's something that Seth Rollins wasn't too happy about in comments we reported on the other day, calling him a cancer and asking him to stay away from WWE. Now, Rollins elaborated a bit more on those comments in an interview with Fox Sports Radio. He said, "Punk and Logan Paul are two different personalities, but they're both as selfish as it comes, and if you're not going to help, then I don't want you to be a part of our industry. I don't want you to be a part of our company, and that's all there is to it." I see. Hiding your true feelings amongst the work to build your Mania match, is it? It is. It is. Rollins then mentioned that Punk had given him his career and that it pains me to have to say bad things about him because he helped me out, and that after the last 6 or 7 years, he's not a fan, not a fan, not a fan. I see that we're still not mincing our words, are we? Before we crack on with the rest of the episode, we just need to thank Chris, the Cypriot Sensation Patru, and the Venerable Jesse Venable for their support on Patreon. I don't know about you, but the wait between AEW's Full Gear and Revolution pay-per-views always seems so damn long. You know what they say? The longer the wait for something, the more you just want the thing right now. Now, Tony, give it to me now. Yes, while all eyes, including mine, have been on the build to the Bryan Danielson versus MJF Iron Man match, which is sure to be just delightful on all levels, it looks like TK may have another marquee match up his sleeve for March the 5th, and it involves those wayward sons, the Elite, and their Trios Championships. With the Bucks and Kenny Omega following up on their Best of 7 series win over Death Triangle with another win this week on Dynamite against AR Fox and Top Flight, it seems like a matter of time until a new challenger approaches, and you know what? As of right now, that may have already happened. Spoiler warning for tonight's AEW Rampage ahead. If you don't want to know, leave, I guess. Because on tonight's Rampage, the team of The Butcher, The Blade, and Kip Sabian took on the Blackpool Combat Club in trios action, and I'm going to give you 3 guesses as to who won that one. There are only 2 options, so you don't need 3 guesses. You only need, it was BCC, okay? It's BCC. They won. And with that win, it looks like they have become the next in line for a shot at the Elite's championship goal, which presumably is going to lead to a match at the pay-per-view. Now, as you remember, Hangman Adam Page and Jon Moxley have had their differences in recent weeks, with Moxley most recently rounding out their trilogy of matches with a rather unsatisfactory win. So given that Hangman is a known Elite affiliate, it is expected that the Elite versus BCC rivalry will also involve Page in some fashion as well. However, we can't exactly say that for sure right now. I mean, are you down for the Blackpool Combat Club versus the Elite at Revolution? I think it sounds like an absolute humdinger. Let us know in the comments down below. Moving on to a major coup for AEW on the business side now, and it seems as if TK's company has secured itself a major broadcasting partnership with one of the world's largest sports networks, that being ESPN. Someone from ESPN grassed up MJF about that being a real story the other way. Anyway, the deal was announced via a press release on AEW's website, announcing that ESPN will now be the new home of AEW programming in the regions of Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific Islands, with this officially beginning in just 6 days on February 16th. Now, the deal will include weekly broadcasts of Dynamite and Rampage, as well as pay-per-view events which will be available on delay. It marks the first expansion in the region for AEW and will represent a huge opportunity for growth in a previously untapped market for them. This is the latest in AEW's clear goals for massive expansion in 2023, with another major broadcasting deal being inked with DAZN 2 weeks ago for the distribution of AEW programming for over 40 European countries. There's also been the much rumoured AEW streaming service potentially coming in the near future, and of course the fact that AEW will also be beginning their house show schedule on March 18th. We're sticking with AEW, and there's been an update on the status of the long-absent former AEW Women's Champion Thunder Rosa, because Rosa has been on the shelf for 6 months at this point, and while she was initially said to be suffering with a disc issue in her back, it has seemed to have dragged on longer than both her and AEW had initially anticipated, which has been quite the worry for us fans. Because while Rosa was reportedly backstage at the December 21st edition of Dynamite in San Antonio, a return has still not materialized since then. However, there may now finally be an indication that Rosa's return may be imminent, as she was once again reportedly backstage at this week's Dynamite from El Paso, according to Insider. This combined with Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer's report from back in November that Rosa would likely be returning to action in February, and maybe, just maybe, we could see Rosa at some point before Revolution. Moving across to WWE now, and following the universal acclaim for the Cody Rhodes and Paul Heyman promo segment on Raw this week, it seems like the talk of whether it should have been Sami versus Reigns at Mania instead has actually gone more quiet. I mean, it was just really good. I could have been having a root canal and being kicked in the groin multiple times, and my attention still would have been locked on the screen. Maybe. But as good as that segment was, it seems like one WWE Hall of Famer still has his doubts over whether Cody will be able to counteract the disappointment that is sure to come if/when Sami falls short of the Elimination Chamber. Because speaking on the latest edition of his podcast, Foley is Pod, Mick Foley spoke of his concern for Cody if the Sami versus Roman feud is simply a one-off deal. He said WWE has to be really careful in how they treat what they have in Sami Zayn. So if it's a one-off, I think fans will be upset and subconsciously take that out on Cody. So I think it's really important that Sami be treated reverently by the people in charge. You don't want this title shot to be the peak of his storyline and then soon forgotten. While WWE will likely try to intertwine the two storylines, in all likelihood Zayn's attention will be taken away from Roman and onto the remaining members of the bloodline, which may not be what many would have wanted, but if done correctly, WWE may manage to pull it off without either Cody or Sami suffering for it. Good luck to you, lads. Speaking of WrestleMania, another man that is garnering his fair share of speculation for the show of shows is the Intercontinental Champion Gunther. Because following the Ring General's history-making performance at the Royal Rumble, as well as his recent accolade of becoming the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of the 21st century, it's safe to say that he is kind of a big deal right now. And naturally, that would suggest that a comparably big match would also be in the pipeline for Gunther at Mania. Right? Well, while reports have suggested that Gunther could be set for a triple threat with Sheamus and Drew McIntyre at Mania, there has long been another big meaty man, perhaps the biggest, most meatiest man of all of them that has been rumoured to be Gunther's opponent, and that is none other than the Beast, Brock Lesnar. A fat slab of ham if I ever saw one. The match, which was somewhat teased at the Rumble with a brief stare down between the two, has always been a bit more of a dream than a reality for both fans and for Gunther himself, who recently described Brock as his end boss in a recent interview on the Rob Brown Show. However, the reality may unfortunately be another thing altogether, given Brock's current rivalry with Bobby Lashley looking to perhaps keep his attention for the Chamber or perhaps Mania. Further dampening the dreams is Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer, who noted that he has been told so many times that Brock Lesnar's Mania opponent will not be Gunther. I mean, to be honest, the Gunther, Drew and Sheamus match is going to be a banger after banger after banger, banger bros, in my opinion. So let's just look at the positives, eh? And we finish up on a real positive note, as there has been a new update on the condition of WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler after suffering a stroke on Monday. Lawler, who was discovered in the driveway of his Fort Myers home on Monday afternoon, was rushed to hospital where it was later revealed he had suffered a massive stroke. While fans and friends of Lawler were understandably worried, it seems that thankfully things have progressed increasingly well for the King ever since. Following news that Lawler would be set to make a full recovery, it has now been revealed via via his Twitter account that not only is Lawler out of the ICU, but is also set to be discharged from hospital at some point today. In the post, it was revealed that Lawler will now be able to proceed with outpatient rehabilitation from home to help recover his speech and cognition skills, with the post reiterating that doctors are hopeful of a full recovery. This is good news to head into the weekend on, and we at WrestleTalk would like to continue to offer our well wishes to the King in his ongoing recovery.
In this WrestleTalk news, fans were more than slightly annoyed at last night's AEW Dynamite, more big returns lined up for WWE, and Ollie's review of Dynamite last night, which everyone loved.